So, Lone Rider here, and I just briefly wanted to say a word about the media coverage of the Covington incident, where the Covington high school students were accused of being bigots and harassing the Native American protesters at the Lincoln Memorial. And well, it turned out afterwards that anybody who saw more than 30 seconds of the video that was posted on the news, it turns out they didn't, but the media ran with that narrative, and now these people have been demonized and denounced for basically just being there while they got confronted by some strange old codger with a drum who got in their face and tried to pick a fight. And a lot of people have talked about what this means in terms of the media's credibility and the implications for it. And um, I think that is significant, but I think it's not enough to just point out that getting things right and verifying things before you pass them on, publish them, or share them with others it's not just about the media. It's a responsibility we all have. Um, Anecdotal example from my case: I worked for Mountain Bike Access for many years here in Union County, New Jersey, and I went to many public meetings. And there was one public meeting where I actually removed myself from the meeting and left early because the after an hour of nothing but anti-mountain bike stuff from people who were getting increasingly personal with their insults, I was like, I'm going to say something that's going to make us look bad, so I'm going to remove myself from this situation before I get angry and lose my temper. So I did. Now, while I was at the meeting, there were several incidents where anti-mountain bike people had to get asked to leave the microphone because they went over the time or they became vitriolic beyond what was tolerable. Um, but it was an incident that allegedly took place after I left that's relevant here. Um, After I left, I was told that a guy got up and basically said that he had a gun, and if he saw any mountain bikers on the trail, he would blast them or something like that. And he was apparently escorted from the microphone by two burly policemen, or asked to leave the meeting or immediately or whatever. But there were two problems. I wasn't there to hear this, and I couldn't confirm that it happened. Now, it seemed a logical escalation of the anti-mountain bike hysteria that I had seen earlier in the meeting when I was there. Um, and, you know, normally I would have just looked at the video of the meeting. All of these public meetings were videotaped. But the video from that meeting was never released, and actually to this day hasn't been released. I wonder why. But more to the point, I talked to various people, and who were at the meeting, and I couldn't confirm that this actually happened. Now, at the time, I was writing essays and articles on the mountain bike effort that were being put up on the website of a friend of mine who runs a local bike shop. And I was doing, reports on the various meetings and activities and so forth as far as the effort to get mountain bike access. And I said to myself, if this happened, it's certainly something people should know about. And also, quite frankly, it, didn't reflect well on the other side, which could only help us. But I said to myself, is it honest of me to report on something that I can't make sure happened, that I can't verify actually occurred? It seems to fit with what I know of the mindset of the other side. It seems like a logical escalation of the conduct that I had seen earlier. To go from vitriolic insults and denouncement to threats. It's not. They were already like halfway there. But the point is, I wasn't there to hear it. I couldn't confirm from talking to people that it specifically happened. And because the government never released the video of that public meeting, I wasn't able to see for myself. So I chose not to specifically report on that. I did mention the denouncement of mountain bikers and the fact that several of the mountain bike opponents were asked to leave, escorted from the microphone essentially, or asked to leave the microphone earlier in the meeting. But I didn't specifically report that this threat occurred as fact because I couldn't. I couldn't verify that it was there. So whether or not you're actually a professional journalist, if you're publishing anything or writing anything, you have a responsibility to make sure that it's true. It might be something that you believe is true, think is true, seems logical to you to be true, but you have to be able to confirm that it happened before you put it out there. And this isn't just true for somebody writing updates on public meetings on a bike advocacy page on a website. It's not just true for professional journalists. One could argue it's even true for regular people with their emails and social media. If you're going to pass something on to people, just do a cursory check first and make sure it's accurate, so you're not responsible for feeding hysteria or rumor panic or whatever you want to call it, right? And so this to me, it's not just. I agree the media bears more responsibility when they get it wrong because that's actually their job. It's what they get paid for. They have not just a moral obligation like we all do to get things right, but they actually have a contractual obligation. It's what they're paid for. However, when we look at the media, when it falls down on the job, like in this instance with the Covington kids, basically a bunch of grown-arse men, excuse my language, tried to pick a fight with a bunch of teenagers who were just waiting for a bus, and all of a sudden the teenagers were denounced and made out to be the bad guys. And it turns out that anybody who did any research into it could tell that that's not what happened. And it's like, well, the media didn't do their job. They didn't make sure it was true before they ran with it. That's entirely correct. But make sure you don't do the same thing, either in your capacity in whatever it is you're writing or sharing or putting out there, right? We all have a responsibility to the truth, and we all have a responsibility to avoid making the world a worse place by repeating falsehoods. So, my 2 cents on that. Lone Rider out.